What have your pets done that is worryingly smart? Story 1, they figured out that if they want the toy or bone the other has, to go to the front door and bark like a stranger is walking up to the house. When the other dog shows up to assist in barking, run like to get the toy. It's not just clever, but dishonest in the worst kind of way. Story 2, every morning for breakfast, I always eat fruit. And that weekend, there was a farmer's market selling fruit for cheap. So I bought a Tio and I couldn't fit them in the fridge, so I left a few bags on the side in the dining room, reachable distance, you not. I woke up and was surprised to see an apple next to me. Over the next few days, my dog would get up in the morning, go in the bag, and get a fruit to put next to me on the bed. He proceeded to do this for the next 2 weeks until we ran out. I thought it was the cutest thing ever, but a part of me is like, holy. Story 3, I would do the old trick when my cat yawns to stick my finger in his mouth. To know why I do it, I guess it's just funny to see his expression when boom, suddenly fingers. So the other day he's sitting on my lap, and I yawn, he wakes up and does a stretch, perfectly putting his paw in my mouth. Boom, suddenly paw. Still no idea if by accident or if planned. His smug expression afterwards makes me lean towards the latter. Story 4, one of my cats learned how to turn the internet off. He realized everybody goes crazy when he goes behind the TV stand and messes up with the wires. So when we're not paying enough attention to him, usually if we're on our phones or the computer, he just unplugs the router. I don't think he knows how much power he has. Story 5, one of my dogs knows how to open door handles. The other one can't even figure out that he's not supposed to eat rocks. It's a mixed bag with my pets. Story 6, my dog knows my caller ID. I sometimes need to call home from my cell, and our home phone speaks the incoming call's caller ID. The only time my dog ever howls is when I call and the answering machine says my ID. She's done it when my mom is off somewhere else in the house and can't hear the phone ringing. She doesn't do it for any other phone call, even if I'm not home. I also try calling while I'm still home to see if I can get her to howl, but she just looks at me like I'm an idiot. My dog also has 2 bowls, one for food and one for water. Whenever I give her some crushed ice to lick in the water bowl, she'll pick up chunks of the ice and put them in the food bowl instead, apparently solids food bowl, even if said solids turn into water. And it seems like people like my dog, she learned a lot of things on her own and doesn't really care what I think, which would give me a lot of headaches. But I wouldn't trade her for anything in the world. Hey, race a sweet pick. Story 7, my dog understands Christmas, as in he will sit where the tree goes throughout November. Once the tree is up, he'll lie beside it crying. Once there are presents, he'll paw at them and carry them to us because he wants to open them. On Christmas, he starts trying to wake everyone up around 5 and begins howling around 7. And I kid you not, he will open his presents like a 5 or 6-year-old and excitedly run around with a toy or treat for a minute before looking for the next present. One year, we had less than 5 things for him to open, so he stole a present from me. Story 8, when I get asked to do some things, he'll groan jokingly and do the thing anyway. Now, when I call my dog while she was sleeping, or if I accidentally nudge her at the foot of the bed, then she groans with attitude like I would. Kind of adorable, kind of freaky. Story 9, we had a dachshund growing up, and he could tell when my mom was going to have a seizure. He would start circling her over and over, barking. Ironically, he ended up with epilepsy himself, but it didn't shorten his lifespan. They helped each other out. He lived 5 years. I miss that dog. Edited to add my mom had epilepsy since she was 15. Unrelated to dog, which she got her 30s. Our dog wasn't trained, he just did it. Story 10, my birds steal batteries out of electronics, remotes, beard trimmers, fire alarms. You name it, they don't do anything with the batteries. Just take them out and then laugh at me and dance when I find them. Kanas are dickheads, but I love them. Edit the dickheads in question. Story 11, my cat figured out how to fill up my bathtub. He learned how to close the drain and would turn the water handle and would just sit there and watch the tub slowly fill up. It took me weeks to figure out what was going on. Story 12, when my dad was having a difficult time in life, he moved into my apartment. He's really into sports and mostly deaf, so when he enthusiastically cheers for his beloved Detroit Tigers, he doesn't realize how loud he is. One early evening while I was asleep, because I work midnights, the Tigers scored or something, and my dad loses his mind, which woke me and my cat up. I grumbled and closed my eyes, but my cat Mike was not having it. She walked into the living room, and all I hear is my dad go, "Oh, sorry, you'll be quiet." And then my cat walked back into my room, jumped back on the bed, and we both went back to sleep. Edit, I adopted Mike from the Humane Society when she was 3. She came with the name Micah. I didn't want to give her an identity crisis, so I just shortened it to Mike or Mikey. Edit 2, my friend Alyssa figured out my username. Story 13, I had a cat that learned how to open the fridge, and then my dog started begging my cat for food. And then the cat started getting into the fridge just to feed the dog. I patiently await the day where my pets decide to overthrow me and have me fixed. I'm not fighting it. That'll only make it worse in the long run. Story 14, I have a 3-month-old pup who got dirt in her one day. I kept tearing up and she held it partly shut for a few hours. During that time, I felt really bad for her and handed out a lot of treats. Since then, when I am eating, she begs by winking at I with a tiny whimper. Her wink is non-stop. If she's called by someone else in the home, she looks at them with perfect eyes. I get the broken, I once she gets the goods, fully working eyes. She is a mix from Stray. Story 15 every day. When my brother and I pull in the driveway from school, we can see our dog on my brother's bed in the window above the garage, where he knows he isn't allowed to be. When we walk into the house, he is laying behind the living room couch and picks his head up and looks at us like he's been sleeping there all day. Story 16, we used to keep my childhood dog in the garage while we were at school. She once found an old garage door opener, figured out how it worked, and buried it in an old dead potted plant in the garage. When we left for the day, she would nose around in the dead plant till the door opened and go play with the neighbor's dog in their living room, because she also figured out how to open their sliding door and let herself in. Edit finding out was actually just luck. I had a half day from school. She had been getting out pretty much every day, and we had no idea how the door was getting opened. I was walking up the driveway. The door opened, and I saw her coming from over in that direction. Her nose had dirt on it, and there was dirt on the ground. Wasn't too hard to piece together once this happened. Story 17, one of my cats systematically tests for weaknesses in my door. He jingles my keys on the wall. He knows that noise gets that door to open. He's finally managed to unlock the deadbolt with his little paw. If that could turn the doorknob, he'd be gone. My fat cat has devised an alarm system by laying on top of my foot or having his foot touch my foot whenever possible, so that when I get up, if he is sleeping, he will wake up just in case I'm going to feed him. Bonus, here are 2 examples of the foot alarm system. Story 18, growing up, I had a yard that was surrounded by fence, except at the entrance where the cars came in at the front. My dog knew she wasn't allowed to go outside the yard, so when we'd call her and she was out gallivanting, she would go to the neighbor's yard in the back, hop the fence, and come back over, then strut around the back side of the front like, "Hey, I've been here the whole time. I only found out because one day I was walking around the house calling for her and caught her." Sneaky. Story 19, I had a yabby in my freshwater tank. That is a genius. I one day watched him gather some food pellets in his cave, wait for the fish today, eat the rest, then a few minutes later place them in front of the cave entrance, then attacked and ate a fish that came to eat the pellets. He stockpiled his meal to later bait an even better meal. That is in his own tank now. Edit, I done the words good. Story 20, not as much smart, rather worryingly calculated. On Christmas Eve, I was wrapping the cat's favorite treats because in that person, the 3 boys weren't too fussed about this, but Amber, the princess, wanted the treats now. Of course, she's a cat and has no concept of Christmas, so I gave her one of her normal treats and put the presents away. She was not amused by this. Now, the thing about Amber is that she never came upstairs. She had tiny little legs that made the journey too long, so she commandeered the downstairs instead. But that night, I was woken up by weird cat chirping. I opened my eyes, and on the shelf level across from me was Amber. I was confused as to why she was upstairs, and B, how she got on my shelf. As I was thinking this, whilst maintaining eye contact, she stuck out a paw and swiped one action figure off the shelf. I didn't react at first, so she did another, and another. By the third, I realized what she was doing, and I said her name in shock, to which she hopped off the shelf and left my room like it was nothing, and that confirmed my suspicions that Amber held grudges and exacted revenge. Story 21, my dog likes to sleep in the kitchen. Most nights, I am up late on my desktop working, which is near the kitchen. When he gets annoyed at the light, he goes behind the curtain to make a blindfold that covers his eyes. It can take him a few tries to get it just right, but it always ends up looking something like this. Story 22, back when I was a kid, my family had an incredibly intelligent Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. She had somehow managed to learn several dozen different words, to the point where we could tell her to go find certain people, to wait for us in certain rooms, or to pick out specific items from her collection of about 15 different toys. This dog would even obey remarkably detailed commands combining those elements, like go get your hedgehog, then bring it to Dad in his office. Suffice to say, she was a damned remarkable pet. Now, this dog's favorite toy was a little stuffed animal that was vaguely shaped like a human, which we referred to as her baby. She would wrestle with it, tote it around the house, and keep it right next to her whenever the family would gather to watch a movie or something. After a year or so of such adventures, though, the toy started to get a little bit worn out, so my mother decided to replace it. In an effort to surprise the dog, she discreetly put the old baby in the garbage, then stood in the middle of the living room with the new one behind her back, KD. My mother called. The dog's name was KOD, though we pronounced every letter KD. Come here, as expected. The dog came bounding into the room, a happy spring in her step. Where's your baby? Go get your baby. Everyone expected the dog to approach the corner where her toys were kept, discover the item was missing, then mount a search for it. She had done similar things in the past, after all, with hide-and-seek being one of the many games she seemingly enjoyed. But rather than behaving as anticipated, Coyote trotted over to the trash compactor and started pressing on its foot pedal with her paws. She wasn't heavy enough to get the thing open, but the intention was clear enough. In the end, Coyote wound up with 2 babies. TLDR, clever canine counters caper. Story 23. I have 2 horses, Red and Mickey. They're yard next to each other, and there's enough of a gap in the fence that a clever horse may work out that they can just manage to pinch the other's hay through it. Red took it a step further and realized that if he could steal Mickey's hay, Mickey could steal his. So he waits until Mickey is distracted by his bucket feed, and then Red takes his own hay from his own feeder and deposits it across the yard. Where it's safe, he then goes back and takes Mickey's hay and deposits it where it is safe. Then Red eats his hard feed and 2 lots of hay. We had to move all the hay feeders. Story 24. My dog is afraid of the smoke alarm. After a while, he discovered the toaster could set the alarm off if toast burned, so he became scared of the toaster. Eventually, he figured out the noise the bread bag made as it preceded the toaster noise, so he became scared of that. Eventually, he figured out the kettle turning and usually accompanied the bread bag noise, so he became scared of that. Now we have just reached the point that he has figured out the time of day. We go into the kitchen to turn on the kettle and open the bread bag, so he has scheduled his fear to that. I'm always blown away how he has been able to figure all this out. Not sure if it is really that smart, but it impresses me at it to clarify the smoke alarm has only actually gone off once or twice, but he remembers it well. We are also training him with treats to not be scared. He is also a Chihuahua cross, so being scared of noises is kind of his thing. Story 25. Not current pet, but a dog I had as a teenager. Dog jumps up on the couch. No, you're not allowed on the couch. Go lie in your bed. Dog leaves the room. A moment later, he returns with his bed and throws on the couch. Gets back up on the couch in his bed and stares at me. Fair enough. Story 26. My dog has on the floor and casually placed my husband's underwear over it. Stolen the cat treats bag and hid it behind the entertainment center. Has been the only dog to break out of his boarding kennel, find his own bag, and walk around the front waiting for a walk. He's but such a sweet baby. My cat taught herself to fetch and hugs my arm for attention. She learned that when I tap twice on a surface I want her there. She follows me around because I give her hugs and food. She also knows that she shouldn't go outside. She was a stray and stays clear of accidentally open doors now. Story 27. During my teens, I had a cat and a dog. The dog door that led outside had a door that we could close and lock with a latch. The cat learned how to not only shut the door, but lock it as well. So she started locking the dog outside when he went out. He was a cowardly dog, so really she just had to sit inside in front of the door and had be too nervous to come back in. Story 28. Not so much worrying as it is somewhat annoying and funny. But my Golden will walk up to the Xbox, look at the Xbox button, boop it with his nose, and wait for the light to turn on and the chime to sound, and then just walk away all satisfied looking. For a couple of months, I would come home from work and notice the Xbox was on, but no, I had turned it off. I accused my fiancée of leaving it on until one day I was in the next room and heard the chime, so I ran in and he was walking away from it. Then he started to get flagrant about it and do it right in front of me, and eventually turn it off if I was playing it, and he wanted my attention. Goldens are a trip. Story 29. We were looking after a friend's dog. We came home from work in the evening with a huge pile of dirt by the front door. The dog, unlike every other time we came home, was lying on the couch looking very guilty about something. The look. It took us forever to figure out where the dirt came from. We had an old flower pot downstairs on a shelf. The pot had been emptied by the front door, and the pot returned to the shelf like nothing had happened. Story 30. Where to begin with this question? My pup knows that she's not allowed in the kitchen, so she assumes that the cat isn't allowed either. Of course, when he inevitably goes in there, she'll run over and either do a quiet bark or nudge my feet until he'll look at her, and she'll herd me towards the kitchen to tattletale. Same goes when the cat is scratching on furniture he's not supposed to be, or meowing. Can't think of anything else at the moment, but this definitely isn't the only example. Story 31. My cat was displeased to be shut out of the bedroom when one of us was playing with the Oculus Rift, so she scaled the laundry rack to the top of the bathroom door, jumped from there to the roof window, ambled across the roof, and dropped down into the bedroom through the other open window, then jumped on my husband's lap. He was rather surprised. As you can imagine, she was 6 months old at the time. Story 32. My dogs are stupid idiots, so this may not exactly be worryingly smart, but one of my pups has successfully punked me a couple times when it comes to stealing my takeout food. He knows the rules and obeys them generally. He's no anarchist. But he's smart enough to bluff, like when I'm chowing on my Indian takeout, he'll politely pace around avoiding eye contact. Like humble in his to the rules he knows he is supposed to follow, Out of the blue, he'll snap into action and snag a dumpling and flee in the yard to feast on or bury that. He's learned that if he acts fishy, he'll keep my guard up, but if he acts like a good boy, I might slack some and trust him. So he'll throw down the bait and switch. Story 33. When I lived with my parents, we had an enclosed garden for the cat. My dad would go out of town overnight. When he was away, he was outside a lot and didn't eat as many snacks between meals. He had a traveling bag that would be in his computer room when he was home. Our cat figured out that she can find out if he's home by checking if the bag is there. Then he was talking about the lack of snacks while the cat heard him. He also mentioned that he was leaving soon. Our cat proceeded to go out, catch a mouse, not kill it, and put it in his bag. Story 34. I have rats. 6 boys in 1 cage. 4 girls and another solo boy in his own separate cage. Solo boy has behavioral issues, so he can't be homed with anything but himself. I've tried everything from getting him snipped to going ridiculously slow with introductions. Nothing. He goes for the kill with everything, myself included. My partner was the one who found this out. Loki, the in question, is able to open his cage door by putting all his weight on it, free roaming our apartment to do God knows what, then just back in his cage whenever he's done. You're probably asking how he closes the door, preventing us from noticing him escaping. Right, well, I had a chew toy on the door for him. This smart literally just pulls on the chew toy. I wouldn't have known he was getting out if it had not been for my partner waking up in the middle of the night to use the washroom. Smartest little I've ever met. You Loki, I now know it's you who's been destroying my furniture, the reason why I won't get my damaged deposit back. I have 2 Russian blue cats that hate each other. One has a crinkle toy that it loves. Long story short, the other cat took her paw and crinkled the toy 3 times, then walked slowly behind the corner to wait for the other cat to come into the room so she could beat the out of her. Story 35. I had a cat named Buddha, and ID had him for about 3 years. I noticed that there was pee in the toilet, so I asked my boyfriend if he'd stopped flushing or what. Then one day we were both in the bathroom, and he said, "What is Buddha doing?" Buddha was on the toilet, peeing into it. He must have learned from watching me. I never taught him. He only peed in there. No, but it was the funniest thing. I have a picture of it because no one believed me. God, I miss him. Story 36. My dog. Let's call her A. Had a dog friend who was dumb as a brick. Let's call him B. When BS owners were out of town, he'd stay with us. It was a bit spoiled and had lots of bones and toys she never touched unless we wanted to have them. One day, when it was checking out who was cooking in the kitchen and if she could snag some food, B got a hold of one of her bones. B was a large dog, and once he had something, he wasn't giving it up. It was fairly big herself, but she didn't compare to B. So A comes out of the kitchen and realizes that B has her bone that she hasn't touched in months and is having none of it. She knows from past experiences that she can't just snag the bone away from B. So she grabs a tennis ball and sneaks up behind him and drops it on his head. B stares up at the ceiling for about 3 minutes trying to figure out what's happening, and A snags the bone and hides it. B looks down and sees that the bone is gone and then stares at the ceiling for another 5 minutes trying to figure out how it took his bone. Rest in peace, A. You were an amazing dog. Story 37. Remus usually uses his brains for evil, but he's remarkably good at knowing when I have nightmares and waking me up, often before I realize that the nightmare is happening. He sleeps right next to me and always has to be touching me with his paw so that he knows when something is up. Best cat ever. He's also remarkable at knowing when I'm depressed and need to get moving out of the house to go do something. I've got a housemate who's allergic to cats, so he stays in my bedroom or with me in my office while I'm working, and if he notices him spending too much time laying in bed, he'll go scratching me out at the door and generally making a ruckus to get me up, moving, and working. What's even neater is he somehow knows the difference between me chilling because I'm on vacation or have the flu or something and won't bother me then. Story 38. My friend Street. Bernard is about 6 months old. She somehow figured out how to lead people to what she wants. She will come up to you and very gently grab your hand with her mouth and pull you to where she wants something from. I was visiting the other day, and she took me to the door to let her out back. Later, she took me into the kitchen and kicked her empty water bowl at me. He has no idea where she learned this. Just started doing it one day. Story 39. My cat learned how to turn on the television. More importantly, the cat has a favorite show. So my daughter would come home from school, and if she had a good day ID, let her watch television as she had her afternoon snack. She invariably chose cute cat videos on YouTube. She would sit on the couch with our cat next to her, and both of them would watch with full attention. One day, while my daughter was at school, I heard the TV turn on by itself. I got up to investigate, and I saw the cat standing on the couch mashing its paws on the remote, looking at the TV, then looking back at the remote to mash buttons. I realized that the cat wanted to watch cute cat videos even though his human wasn't home yet. When I turned on YouTube to do just that, the cat settled down and watched attentively. The cat will now occasionally come to me, my wife, or my daughter, dragging or batting the remote across the floor when he wants to watch TV. Story 40, both worryingly smart and concerningly stupid. My cat learned to close the door. His method was non-typical and involved jumping onto the nearby cabinet and onto the top of the door, crucially, on top of the door close to the wall. He would then make his way along the door and jump back to the cabinet from the top of the door, furthest from the wall. The cat was able to work out the moment difference to determine that this would exert a net positive amount of force and close the door. He was unable to work out that simply putting his paw on the door from the floor would have the same effect. My cat is engineer smart, i.e., quite intelligent but fundamentally stupid. Story 41, door handles on a door that opens in the direction of travel are easy for a Great Dane. Just a swipe of a paw, and they're through, but a Yale Knight latch on a front door that opens in, that needs a fine grip between the front teeth, rotation in the correct direction, and then back up slowly to pull the door open. And the sneaky thing learned how. Story 42, my wife told me a story about a worryingly smart and a worryingly dumb dog. Her family lived on a couple-acre property in a very rural area. They had a raccoon going through their garbage and getting in the garage, so they set up a live trap. The dumb dog followed the smart dog everywhere. He basically stared at the smart dog while running next to him. Smarty learned to lead Dummy wherever Smarty wanted him to end up. Smarty ran next to a fence post, for example, and Dummy ran snack into it. Eventually, Smarty got bored. One day, after running Dummy into a ditch, the kennel wall, and various other amusing things, Smarty thought it would be good fun to run Dummy straight into the live raccoon trap. Dummy never learned what was going on, and not to follow Smarty without watching where he was going. I wish I had been there. My wife can't tell the story without laughing, maybe because she tells it better than I do. Edit, I've never learned how to proofread my post before hitting the post button. Story 43, my white German Shepherd Lab. Mix knows how to steal chicken off the counter, lick up any oil, hide the bones, then come back to us with the most devilishly cute smile on her face. Misha, you cute as but you could be a huge. Story 44, my cat was sleeping on her cat tree. When I walked over to look through stuff on the table next to the tree, I scratched her on the head and woke her up, then turned away to do whatever it was I was there for. I felt a tap on my shoulder, so I turned around, and as soon as I was facing the cat, she reached out and smacked me across the face. She then went back to sleep. Story 45, I have 3 dogs. One of them is an avid fetch player, one is lazy, and one is a bully. The dog that loves fetch will bring you a ball, drop it on your lap, and give you a look until you throw it. The bully will systematically go out of her way to get the fetch ball and put in the toy box we have for them, because the fetching dog can't get into the box without help. Story 46, my cat will look very intensely at where I'm sitting, making me think I'm sitting on a toy or maybe some treats. So it'll get up and she'll quickly curl up in my spot. So I can't sit back down. Then I have to go find a new seat to sit in. She taught the other one to do it too. They're seat stealing. Story 47, my cat uses my brother as a pillow. My brother is a rather large young man, so he is the squishiest thing in the house. She is also jealous of his girlfriend. My cat will calmly wait for food for me during dinner time, then go to everyone else in turn. She pretends like she hasn't eaten in days. We all know it is a lie. She will steal the food she wants if she isn't handed said nibble. One day, she stole half my chicken breast off my plate when I went to refill my water. She doesn't listen to me when I tell her to come inside. She listens to my 4-year-old, though. Why, the 4-year-old will pick the cat up in a way cat hates without foot support. If I tell her to come inside, she expects to be carried comfortably. Story 48, the other day, my Jack Russell wouldn't relax and was staring at our other dog laid in the dog bed. A few moments later, he wanders over to the back door and sits, hinting he needs to go take a. He knows that this is a group activity, and in the evening, both dogs have to go out to the toilet before bed. So I shouted at our other dog, who got up and came to the door. As soon as I opened the back door, instead of going out, he runs toward the bed to shotgun it for the night. The cheeky little sneaky. I wasn't even mad, just impressed. Story 49, my 16-year-old dog knows my 2 puppies can get up the stairs but won't go back down. So when they're annoying him by trying to get him to play, he will play for a few seconds to get them to chase him, then run straight upstairs with them following. As soon as they are up, he turns round and walks downstairs before going back to sleep. He also uses an angled mirror in my room to spy on the stairs from his basket. You can tell he knows it is a reflection and not the real thing, because if you gesture for him to come from the top of the stairs, he will run straight round the corner to you and not to the mirror. Story 50, my rabbit has these plastic rings that link together to make kind of chain thing. One end is attached to the top of the cage, and it hangs down, and I put a bell on the end so he can entertain himself in the cage with it along with tons of other toys. It hangs a bit higher than the height when he's sitting, so he has to put some effort standing up his back feet to get to it. One morning, I notice he's pushing his pillow to the center of the cage. He then proceeds to stand on top of the pillow, using it as a step stool so he can reach the bell with no effort. Smart little. Story 51. When my dog doesn't want to be outside, she pretends to pee. She makes eye contact with me while she squats to pee, only she isn't very good at pretending to pee for a convincing amount of time. She will do it for about 1 second, then she gets excited and does her good girl jumps and spins and acts like it's time to come back inside. Story 52. I had a service dog a few years ago. At the time, I was staying with my mother for the weekend because I was in between leases on apartments. That being said, Jude, one day decided he would jump into my mother's lap and then paw at her face, something he had never done before, and he ended up scratching a good-sized cut on her upper lip close to the nose. How was this worryingly smart? The skin looked strange to my mother and me. She made an appointment at the doctor's office, and we found out she had skin cancer in that exact spot. My mother ended up having surgery to remove the cancer. As of today, all is well. My mother's doing fine. Jude is still a good boy and gets lots of love for what originally thought was him being a brat. Story 53. Before we moved overseas, we gave our cat to a family friend who lived 100 miles away. Our cat went missing and was found some time later on the opposite side of a divided highway from our exit. He was so close, but he couldn't figure out how to cross over without getting hit. This was no straight shot, either. He went missing in Montauk, New York, and was found in Westchester, which some of you will recognize means he walked across the entirety of New York City. Story 54. My dog waited until the guide dog sitting him went to the bathroom, and then opened a kitchen drawer and dug a 1-pound chocolate bunny left from Easter out. Nobody knew the bunny was there, but the dog, who had apparently smelled it on a trip through my sister's kitchen. Sneaky would always act uninterested in whatever he wanted until you left the room. Story 55. A few things. Mine will get my attention and will tell me what she wants by leading me to the object. Doesn't matter what it is, she'll lead me to it and point at it with her nose. She picked this up on her own. Examples: food, leash walkies, leftover dinner scraps on the counter, a toy, bedtime, cookie jar treats. Even things she knows she isn't allowed, but she tries to ask anyways, like wanting to rummage in the garbage. She will alert one of us if a family member is having problems breathing or is making a sound she has never heard before on one occasion. That was helpful because my father was choking in another room, and I was unaware. I don't know if this is normal for dogs. The only other dog I had was lazy, and I'm pretty sure he would have rather been a cat, but I love the out of him anyway. Story 56. Mine won't drink water when I'm away from home. Somehow she's made the correlation between drinking and having to go out. When I get home after work, she chugs an entire bowl while I wait, leash in hand. Edit, I guess that's also a bit stupid, but the reasoning is smart. Story 57. My dog realized that it's not the escape from the backyard that gets her in trouble. It's being caught outside of the backyard. So I would come home, she would be gone in ID, start calling for her frantically, ID walk the neighborhood, and eventually come back to the house where she would be patiently awaiting my return in the backyard. We had to put up an electric fence, which she systematically checks for weaknesses. God forbid the battery in her collar dies, or she'll headbutt the fence until a post comes loose.